Good morning and happy Tuesday. Let me get this sorted. Okay. Have my chat open. I haven't done this in a while, so we'll see how rusty I am. Yeah, I don't know if people will actually join in, trickle in, but I'm kind of just going to dive in, and if people have questions along the way, feel free to ask. If you're watching this recorded, I'm probably going to put it up, and just leave it up and feel free to comment and I can reply later. And yeah, I guess let's just jump in. So today, primarily what I want to look at is Bun. If you're on Twitter, you probably cannot avoid hearing about it. If you're not on Twitter, maybe you actually haven't heard of it. It's probably worth your mental health to not be there. But I started using it a while ago just to be aware of kind of like what it was doing. This is their homepage where they make claims of being at runtime practically like twice as fast. And then if you come down to their Bun install is probably the thing that is most important to me. And to some degree, I don't even know how they make it possible, but just significantly faster. And the thing that's particularly nice is you can actually get this benefit without having to change anything else about your project. And so I'll probably demonstrate that at the start. And from my current experience so far, that's the best bang for your buck right now. You could change literally nothing else and just do that. We have at least one project that unfortunately kind of like went down the yarn PNP route. So it's been a bit more work to kind of like undo some of that in order to support this. But I have a feeling the gains are going to be worth it. And I have not had an enjoyable time with yarn PNP, unfortunately. And then tests I haven't even gotten into, but I'm sure I believe that. I was looking for their bundling times, but where APIs on bundle for the browser. Is it? I thought they had a metric for their bundling as well too, but that's okay. So what we'll actually do is we'll start with, as the name of this video implies, we'll start with a somewhat more typical, and we'll go like way old school. We'll do a MERN stack, but we'll do it, and that's Mongo Express React Node, but we'll do it with Create React App and like the Node and Express backend on the back, just to kind of like show the full kind of like transition and evolution of where things started and where things are now, and why this is actually important. So let's, I don't know, put this in here. I have a Twitch folder. I'm not on Twitch, but this is where I put them, so too bad. And we'll make a dir for hello MRB, which I think is what this stream is called. And yeah, let's just open that whole thing up. Get out of here. So I'll first make a subdirectory for the old MERN. Yeah, we'll leave an old one so that we can kind of like more quickly compare back and forth. And so let's just start with that. And first thing we'll do, and I always forget the syntax of this, is because I haven't used this tool in a very long time, and I'm quite glad. I shouldn't need that anymore. So some of this, we'll call it whatever, front end. Sure. And so here, just watch. This is it installing the dependencies. And you can count the amount of time that this is taking just mentally. And if you're like me, who starts a lot of projects, you started to see this a lot. It's It's like 16 seconds to add the packages, another 6 to do whatever else just happened. But now it's ready. I'm sure you can imagine what this looks like, but just in case you can't. Voila. So that's our front end, and let's just put in a very basic back end. I'm sure there's a generator somewhere, but we'll do this old school style. So npm init. So also kind of demonstrate the difference of initializing with node and npm versus with Bun. So we just create a basic starting project, sure. And for now, we'll start with just a index file. And we'll npm install express. So this is the E of the MERN. That works. Sometimes I just let Copilot drive my life. Yep, exactly what I wanted. And then we can throw in even a start script. Nope. Dex.mjs. And I think this will throw an error, and that's what I want to demonstrate as well. I don't think I called app.start. Run, start, listen. Okay. So now on 5,000, we got hello world. So that does that. Let's see here. Let's just put everything all together here. So we'll do this quite sloppily just to kind of show everything all in one file without having to jump around. I like to use Note as my example. Sure. And then what else do you ask me for? Yep, that works. I don't really want any settings, to be honest. Don't get me started on how complicated getting a top level async await is. Okay, and then we need to install Mongoose as well. And I would actually just like that to be Note, and then this is actually interesting. Is that the right syntax, Mongoose model? I thought you needed a schema. See, I'll see what Copilot has to say about this. Sure, we can do a post. We should actually, you're right. Express.json, app.post. Sure. And then, oops, what do you suggest? New node, rec.body. Sure. There's all kinds of things that could and should be added to that, but functionally that works. And then let's even change, we'll leave hello world, we'll add a get for our notes. Will it know? Yep, okay. Cool. So first we'll test whether that actually is able to access my database. Should be running somewhere. Oh, look at that. I already have documents. None of those were just added. I have clearly done this exact same thing times before. So that confirms that this works. And confirms we're connected to Mongo. I'm not even really going to bother posting because you can imagine what that does. So yeah, you can even see it's got body instead of title and content. That's fine. Okay, so I guess to really pull this whole example together, I don't know if it actually is worth it. Essentially, like the front end would presumably make some kind of request to this API, yada yada, go back and forth. I don't even think we need to get into that to kind of like discuss the bun portions of this. So for now, I'm not going to bother unless I see it's necessary. What we can do is a couple of things. So let's start with a benchmark of the node side of things. So say I run this, and then I think I still have this downloaded. Bombardier, yeah. So this is some HTTP benchmarking tool. If I remember correctly, you just point it at the route you want it to benchmark. So that's going to hit this hello world guy, which is just the most simplest of routes. And then it'll run for whatever, 10 seconds, 125 connections, and then give you some kind of baseline, basically. And so we got whatever, 95,000. Is that's total requests, and whatever, like almost 10,000 requests per second, which is really not very good if you think about it, but let's not get into that. So let's talk a little bit about, for now I'm going to focus quite a bit on the back end. I'm currently seeing, particularly because Bun doesn't correctly handle CSS and stuff, that it's more likely that adopting on the back end is going to be both possible and easy. So let's start with that. And first thing that we'll do is we'll just blow up node modules. And I already have Bun installed. If you don't, you just copy this guy. Actually, I even have a new version, so I can show you, like, if I run this again, it's going to update myself to the latest version of Bun. Boom. Who knows what they fixed? They have been moving shockingly quickly in terms of getting stuff done, which is another part of the reason I'm quite happy to follow along. So first change we can do is a bun install, and look at that. It's like whatever, 482 milliseconds. Presumably this is because I've already used these elsewhere, and kind of by default Bun does a very good job of storing things globally. And if I remember correctly, yeah, bun crash.bun install. I'm curious, where did they store? Bun install. Oh, duh. Oops. Cool. So I'll just take a quick peek in here to show. But basically, it stores every single package you've ever installed and then keeps it with the version number next to it as well. And then, depending on the platform you're on, is either symlinking to it in your node modules, which say something like this. Those don't look like symlinks. I think those might just be copied. But basically, instead of having to download every single time, it's just taking a look here. If it's not here, it's quickly fetching it, but otherwise it's just straight copying or symlinking them over to your node modules. So what I wanted to show is if I blew this up, which I haven't done this before, but hopefully it's okay. And then we destroy this. So from Bun's perspective, nothing should exist, and this will be a fresh Bun install. I hesitate to even believe that that's true. But I mean, you watched me do it, and presumably all of these packages are the ones that sit there and nothing else, which seems to be true. Interesting. I would be very curious whether there's some kind of other cache that I missed, but if this was actually real, yeah, I don't know. I mean, it should make sense. I'm on an extremely fast connection, but just relative, like, so let's compare that, remove this, now do this. Okay, you know what, fine, fine. That's an expected difference. Okay, that feels better to me. The difference definitely is more pronounced on when you have more dependencies, considering I have two top level ones, which obviously bring in whatever, like probably or it actually tells me 80 total. So that's interesting. Maybe later I can kind of like pull down some example project and we can take a look at the difference there. But for now, even on a smaller thing, that's like half the time at least. So right there, I could use Bun just for the install and then still continue to use the, actually I deleted it all, so let's bring it back. And now you can see once it's cached, it's like, might as well be instant. Especially if I can compare that to running this guy. Every rerun is still 350 milliseconds, even though, questionably speaking, nothing needs to be done. It's not even questionable, it tells me it's up to date. So let's just, for verification's sake, do that, and then we run this guy, and you can see that it's actually running exactly as before, and it's actually running. So you could stop right there and just say, cool, I'm going to replace our bun install with bun. Where that starts to get particularly helpful is especially if you're on some CI/CD system that I still don't fully comprehend why it's so difficult to get them to cache correctly, but they do. So let's say I had node alpine, copy, sure, can we just do a work dir? And so this would be as if we didn't have bun first. And then we'll run npm install. And then we'll copy everything else. Yeah, and then command npm start. That's good enough. Oops, that's not what I want. We'll also throw in a docker ignore and ignore node modules. And then if we do docker build -t MERN, hello, no, back to MERN, hello. So the first one's going to be a while pulling the Alpine image. But what I'm slightly more curious about is, say, something actually changes in our package.json, which is going to like redo the cache. You can see here now this npm install task is taking 1.5 seconds, which previously was quite a bit faster, not inside Docker, but then you put the Docker layer on, you add another like 3 times as long. Which again, as your project grows, all of these multiplications start getting larger. And now Docker slows things down. You're on some cloud server. Probably that cloud server's like CPU or network might not even be as good as yours. And so everything just like gets slower and slower. So let's compare that to now. Do I want a separate Docker file? We can just cheat. So we'll do run bun install. This is where it gets tricky. We'll double cheat. So you can pull the bun image, and now we just need package JSON, not this guy. Let's comment that out in case we want to go back and forth and compare. And bun lock b. Sorry, and package.json. Now we run this, and again here it's pulling the bun image, which it only should have to do once. And here's the initial bun install. And now that was interesting. 6.8 seconds. I mean, if we run again, it should be instant. Let us try what we did essentially last time. Oh, things you don't expect to see. And I actually had tried this before and I didn't see this. So that might be a thing that I need to report essentially. I don't think there's any reason it should be taking that long. Let's see, did I miss something? This guy, I mean, technically this is whatever that, but that shouldn't change anything at all. Make some change to the package.json, which forces the reinstall. And that install is taking significantly longer than npm. Let us confirm that. Did I remove Docker ignore is still there with node modules? In case that was somehow influencing the npm one, but I don't think so. Sorry, that's the wrong package. Very interesting. 1.5 versus 7. I won't do it now, but I think I might put that up as an issue and maybe share that with them to see what the deal is. Okay, well, I had done this before and that's not the result I had seen, so did it 2 hours ago, which presumably is going to be the latest. 1.0. Just out of curiosity. Whoa. Okay, that must be some kind of like Docker bun coding confliction. I also wonder if me streaming influences that at all. So I might try this again afterwards to see if that has some effect. Well, the conclusion I was gonna say is that what I expected is that this would have been 1.5 and down here we would have been down to maybe like 0.5. And that was something that I had seen before. Obviously this is not the case here, but presumably if that can be replicated locally, it should also be replicable inside Docker. That's just an interesting thing altogether. Let me do a quick peek. Okay, that's fine. Okay, well, isn't that interesting? So let's just ignore the Docker portion of it, pretend that that all worked as intended. So we will check this outside of Docker. And the next thing I want to do is compare the actual run speed. So if we had something like this, I guess it needs to do a bun install. You know what, actually, supposedly if you don't have it installed, did it even do it? How are you running? I am intrigued. So supposedly I have deleted node modules and yet it is still able to run. I have so many questions. Oh, interesting, it ran the node. That does make sense. Sort of. I still know why without node modules it's able to run, but that's another question. Okay, so this is now us running inside Bun. And let's have a look again at the same benchmark now running the Bun version. And we got essentially like a 2x speed up. Maybe it's easy enough to just swap back and show the exact numbers. I've been waiting on Twitter. Oops. So those are the node numbers and those are the Bun numbers. And again, this is, I did nothing but change what I actually ran it with. And so that's cool. If you just joined, Jake, then you may have missed my interesting find, which is apparently that bun install inside Docker is not working as well as npm install. So let's see, it's all cached now, but let me just make some change here. So this bun install takes a very long time, which is almost shocking. And then if we swap this over back to this, and then also back to node, and then run this, this might be cached, and if it is, I'll do it again, but there you go. So 1.5 seconds there versus 6.7 here, which is something I will probably post and share and see what the deal is. Yeah. So that's that. That's running it in Bun. What other things did I want to cover here? I did want to check the fetching from the database just to see what impact change there is. Like I could see how on a basic route things could be improved, but if it's making an actual database request, what's the difference? So here down to 3,000 requests per second. And swap that. Now it's running Bun. And I would guess it's still going to be double, but who knows? We could be surprised. Okay, so less than double. Um, Interesting. So definitely faster, um, but I would be curious if that essentially has kind of like tapered returns as you're doing more and more inside your route. I definitely seems to be that no matter what, it's going to be faster by some degree, but how much faster is a question I would have. Okay, so let's take one. Oh, I got a few more things to go through. So one of the things that's quite enjoyable about, oh Lord, Mongoose types are so bad. They're just not even right sometimes. But let's say this was a TS file. And I think actually if I do this and there's not actually any TypeScript, I think it'll work. False, cannot import a statement outside of a module, which theoretically I could cheat and say type module, and I think that would actually run. Okay, or not. Unknown file extension, interesting, because it's .ts. So right there, if you had a TypeScript file with Node, you can't run it. I could just run Bun on it, and you'll say, oh, well, it doesn't actually have any TypeScript, and you're right. But let's say that I wanted to specifically put something in, and I don't know what silly example I want to do. I want to make it called non-goose. We'll just put, yeah, sure. This is extremely redundant. You don't need this, but this is just to showcase. Let's say something like that. If I knew TypeScript, I would know that that's not how that works. Something like that. As any. Here, just one for fun. Oh no, that's not even the right spot. Fine. I could do an as any here. Or better yet, I actually have a true error up here, so we can just mongoose model. Will this even work? Yeah, it does. Cool. Fix a random TypeScript error. So now if I run this, it still runs, no problem, and has transpiled out that stuff. But if I were to do this the node way, now I would need to install TypeScript, and then I doubt I'm ever going to get this correct, but let's try it. Knit a TypeScript project, and then you'd be like, oh, well, where do I want it to build to? You know what, we won't even bother with that. So I think I should now be able to just run this, and if it's done correctly, great. It exported us an index.js, and then instead of running node this guy, you would just do node index.js. Which, here's an interesting one. Did this impact us at all? I think it was about 10,000 last time on the node one. So no, it did not. And then I guess the other thing to showcase is somehow, even though I guess it's even failing. Oh, I don't even have the types. Okay, let's start there. Do I need the mongoose ones as well? It doesn't look like it. Okay, so we're almost a full second to transpile this 43 lines of code. Don't even get me started about how much I don't understand what the TypeScript compiler is doing with that much time. And it just gets worse. The more files you have, it gets so much worse. And one day maybe Microsoft figures it out. The unfortunate thing is that even if you're running with Bun, that's fine. and kind of like for the most part VS Code or whatever editor you have will hit the server and kind of like warn you of anything. But probably you're still going to want to have your like CI step actually running the full TypeScript compile. So you're still going to have that slowness as part of the process somewhere. Arguably, I have many thoughts on this, but it really seems like this is a spot that TypeScript needs to step up. From what I have seen, they seem adamant that they're going to continue writing the TypeScript compiler in TypeScript, even though from an efficiency perspective, that makes very little sense. But who am I? I don't work on the TypeScript team. Okay, so that would cover the TypeScript, install, Docker. Okay, let's get into the more fun stuff. So, oops, that's not what I want. Okay, maybe. What did I call it? No, MERB. 6 seems way too over my head. I feel like not. I feel like it's all just syntax and whether you want to spend your time. Jared apparently Bun was the first project he did in SIG, which I just think is hilarious. Yeah, it's just would be so painful trying to do so much and having no clue how a language works. So let's back it up to essentially so long I was replying to the fact that yeah, that's the one thing that I don't love here compared to Twitch. And I'm still looking to compare numbers to see whether it's worth. Actually, let me even see if there is some theoretical setting that I can reduce. No, I don't think so. I'm pretty sure I'm already on like not very much delay. Where'd that thing go? Oh my gosh. I just want my chat to show up. There we go. Just did it to learn now. It essentially is what I think happened. And then convinced some investors like, hey, this is pretty cool. And they're like, here's $7 million. What a world. Okay, so let's start with the back end. Okay, yes, I'm in the wrong folder, I get it. And we'll do a similar thing, but this time we'll do a bun init, which I think exists. Sure, I think it maybe even creates me a... When did all of this? Oh no, I initialized in the wrong folder. Sigh. Okay, bun init, I should have caught that. Cool. By default, Bun init puts you a TypeScript file, even though it's not actually TypeScript. And then if we listen to their advice, we can actually run it. So now we already saw that Express by default works with Bun, but Express is both not a great library and excessively slow. And so Bun has, and I'm probably going to need to look at their docs for this one. Where is it? An HTTP server. And so you can simply do that and except it doesn't I don't have no idea what port it does by default. We'll bring it back to 5,000. Boom, got a response. So in like 6 lines of code, we have a server. I both like this and don't like this at the same time. Like here we've got this like magic global Bun thing, which if you're highly fully committed to Bun, I don't think is a problem at all. And realistically speaking, you're only going to have one of these inside an application, most likely. So even if you needed to change, it's probably not a big deal. It's kind of an interesting, as soon as you do this, you have committed yourself to using Bun. Like, yes, you theoretically could go back and swap, but you're going to find that anything inside of this is going to be so bun specific that you're never going to go back. And it brings benefits for sure, but is definitely kind of like an intentional, like, hey, now you're hooked on bun. Top level weight and the routing functions in Express is still in alpha. Yep, absolutely. It just don't even get me started, really. Which actually that might be an interesting thing to test here is this by default. Can I do this? What do I need to do? I hate this set timeout. I'm hooked on the button. No, I want the resolve. So, oh, you know what? We could just bring in the database and do that. Let's try that. Okay. So let's steal what we got here. Not the express. And this is something like, I don't need that either. I really didn't need to copy this, but here we are. Nope. Now the thing I don't remember is, can I just throw JSON in here? No, I think I need to do that. And then that. Maybe. And then we do a bun install mongoose. And what are you complaining about? Nothing. We do need to connect though. So new question, does that top level await give me a problem? I haven't tried this yet. I don't have any logging, but I assume that works. Yeah. There we have. Finally a top level await that I don't need to do anything for. Why? I don't understand why that was so hard. So many questions I have. And the same goes for this guy. Like this worked with that all fine. If I throw an error now, oh no, it's taking so long. That bun is so long. Yeah, like locally, it's great. I think there must be something wrong inside the Docker container. I guess we can also maybe show the run. I think it's watch. I should have been using that earlier. Yeah, so any change will now just start the whole thing. Funny thing is I've never actually used this yet, so this is new to me. And isn't that nice to just be like, hey, here it is inside your actual file. And whoa, if I click that, it takes me actually to my code. And I assume it actually took me to the file, which doesn't even seem like source home. Oh, because it knows exactly, if you look at the bottom of the screen, you can see it knows exactly where it is. And then takes me right there. Okay, nobody told me about this. That is a win. That's a huge win. I can't tell you how many times you get this shitty kind of like compiled JavaScript stack trace, and then it's like 6 layers deep and you have no idea where it is. It's just like, no, my error happened here. Isn't that nice? I'm curious, so like if I failed to connect to my database, well, it doesn't even start, that's why. Fine, it's gonna time out and it's not gonna work. Okay, forget it. Forget about it. Okay, before we test this one, let's first give it a fair. I think hello world is what we did. Completely same response. Hello world. Now, we bomb this guy one more time. And hopefully we get the answer that I'm looking to show, which is, oh my. Yeah, that's quite a bit better than nodes. What were we at? Like 10,000? Once we get into that guy. Let's get too far back. Okay, fine. But this was 10,000 requests per second with Node Express. It was 20,000 with Bun Express. And so that's what, like 7 times better. That's a big number. So now, out of curiosity, hitting the actual database, how does that change things? So before we were seeing 3,000 for this test on Node and 4,000 on Bun. Okay, so pretty quickly that number starts to fall apart, and that's something that I kind of expected to see. Essentially, what I imagine is happening with this bun serve and returning a string, especially seeing some of Jared's tweets, is like that might as well just be a native program. It's basically just saying, hey, use the native HTTP server, and hey, it's just a string, like just copy the string as fast as possible. But now all of a sudden we're here. Lose a lot of performance gains. Interesting. Yeah, because even here, like 5,500 requests per second versus the 3,000, we're under like a 2x speed up, which like 2 times speed up is nothing to, I don't know, scoff at. But it's very quick that we go from this like shocking number. Like this is, if this applied kind of across the board for everything, that'd be wild. But what we're going to find, and I'm not like, this isn't Bun slowing things down. Like presumably most of our time is actually spent here. And probably for most APIs, that's going to be your case, is most of your time lost is actually on like asynchronous operations that you're doing. So that is some interesting bits. And okay, let's get into bundling. So we'll go backwards on this one because this one I think there's still some room for improvement if you ask me on the bun side of things. Let's remove this first. So what I'll do is this first project here I made with a Create React app. What I'll do for this other one is use their, where is it going to be, a guide maybe? We have a work baby shower, can't catch. No. Thank you for joining, enjoy. Is React and JSX maybe? No. Somewhere there's a, actually I even know what it is. I think it's just Bun Create React. So this is a fun thing. Does it show up anywhere? Templates maybe? Benchmarking. Bun Create. This is an interesting thing that I would have loved to see in NPM of like, yes, they have some built in, but you can have kind of like a local template. You could point it to a GitHub repository. And so you can create your template that you'd like to use. And especially I've started to see, like I create so many projects that for whatever reason, I still don't have a template for. And so even like what you saw me do here, I do this like so often, and it would make way more sense for me to have a template. And then as I introduce new tools into my system, I'm using that template. And you're seeing this quite a bit, except people are sharing their templates and then kind of like bringing people on as like followers of their template essentially, which is fine. Like there's nothing wrong with that. But I think it's important to take time and think about how you personally want to do it. both from like a having fun perspective, but also from a like what somebody else chooses is not actually going to be what's best for you. So with that aside, I'll do Bun Create React and then could not determine. Interesting. I was pretty sure that's what that was. Yeah, Bun Create Remix. Bun Create React. That should work, and it doesn't. What am I supposed to do about this? Cloudflare even has this in their docs. Oh, that's theirs on Cloudflare. To see a list of examples. Okay, let's just try that. Simple React. Templates, like where? This is the second time I have used something that somehow no longer works. Unless there's some weird, like I'm inside a project so it doesn't work. Oh, that's so bizarre. Okay, so we can make a next project apparently, which also didn't do anything? What is happening here? That is a little on the sketchy side. Bun examples. Can I try Bun Create? Let's try simple React. Saw that, no. Create React. Okay, the thing is that I use, so this is going to do the actual like create React app, which as you can see is like taking forever as it did before. Whereas before what I had used was a proper Bun template. And so what I think we're going to see here is that this isn't even set up with Bun. Yeah. Okay, let's see if we can figure this out. Otherwise, this might be another thing to report. Okay, React. Yeah, Unless did they remove it for version 1? That would be super bizarre. GitHub. I might need to cheat and find somebody's. Speed, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, this is the same thing. Add the following scripts. Just use it says. When is this from? October 16th last year, which does not seem soon enough. Well, that's really not what I wanted to deal with. Is there a Vite one? Template name. I feel like that's the one I was just on, yeah. Well, let's look how useless we are without templates. I mean, what we can kind of show, surely I did this somewhere. Let me just take a quick peek. I just don't know if I did it on this laptop. Oh, I do have one. Okay, so we're going to cheat because I don't know what the dealio is with their thing. So this is what I got from a previous Bun Create React app. And you'll see a few new things in this template. And I'm very curious to know why this no longer is working. But essentially, they essentially kind of like create their own dev server using Bun. And this runs the build. Let's see what scripts they even have in here. So the build uses Bun build with minify outputs to public. And if you haven't seen, I have an article that's actually quite similar to what they do for esbuild though. So how to replace Webpack and create React app, which essentially you'll see a very similar command here, which does this. What they've done though is interesting, is they've, not interesting, but kind of at the same time, is they basically just removed any CSS in the way that it's normally added. So here you'll see that there's CSS files separate to the JS, and like the React scripts build deals with that correctly because Webpack basically bundles them in. Like here you import the CSS. And as you can see here, no longer is that happening. And what they did basically is they took those styles, threw them in a top level CSS file, and then kind of just like pretended that everything was okay. I believe that their plan is to include a CSS bundler as well. And I'm curious to explore whether there's some kind of like intermediate plugin that can be used in order to deal with that. But let's just take a quick look at the other project first and show what happens if I attempt to kind of like mimic this style. So here they have this bun build. Let's steal this whole thing here. And sure, let's just replace it. So now if I do a bun run build, sure. Obviously, so this is JS, doesn't matter, same thing. So it does minify and pull it together, but it basically creates a CSS file for every CSS file that it found and just treats them as like a generic asset But if you look at how this index.html is set up, that's not going to work. Like as you keep adding CSS files, they're all going to have different names, plus they've got a content hash inside of them, and you'd have to manually add every single one. Whereas in reality, you want maybe like one of two things. You want like the CSS bundled inside this JS. Some of you might be afraid of that. Or you just want to create a single CSS file that gets bundles them all together, and then top level you could import that CSS file. And I'm curious in this esbuild guy, loader.jsx. Yeah, so if you look here, by default esbuild does, I would argue, the correct thing, which is creating a single bundle for all of the CSS. And I'm sure that Bun is going to follow suit. But on the front end side of things for browser bundling, like I'd say it's a pretty big miss. And I'm sure they'll get there, but I think that probably could have been included. But let's jump back over now to the one that supposedly does work. So here, we could just start with just the build first, so bun run build. And like this is what we're hoping for and looking for, is this is just instant. And so that creates that and spits it out, I think, here, yeah. And then they've modified the index.html so that it specifically loads, I think, yeah, right here, that index.js file. And so if we did whatever, like an HTTP server public, we can see it actually running. And clearly I had made some small change to bun1. And then if we did the bun run dev, this is also where things are a little bit interesting, because what I kind of would have hoped from this is that by default it kind of would have live reloaded bun watch hot run dev.tsx, but I think it's not set up correctly, which is not my fault per se because it's the template that they provided. But say I make a change to this guy, let me change that to a 2. I save that. Really, this should have rebuilt it in a perfect world, but it doesn't. And so, like, this isn't a dev server, if you ask me. I guess, like, what you could maybe do, fetch request, serve from dir. Like, supposedly, can I import? No. Like, supposedly their watch will watch anything that's imported. So what I'm wondering is, can I just think this is obviously going to explode, but if I were to import the index, something about that I think are wrong, source index.tsx. That, I also don't think that. FE, yeah, it's just like full on ignoring that source part of the path. So in order for this to be a proper dev server, it would need to detect the changes on these guys, which currently it does not. So that's one thing that right away I'm kind of like, okay, well, this isn't ready. On top of the CSS stuff, It's definitely fast, but if we kind of compare, do I have esbuild globally? No, let's see. Build, yeah, that should be fine. Okay, and then let's say I did steal my command from the other one because I don't remember. Could not resolve source index.js. That's because it's TSX. I don't think I need this anymore, to be honest. Okay, so 40 milliseconds, and then if we minify, shouldn't really change it too much. That's even faster. So if you look at that, that's doing 20 milliseconds on this. And our bun comparison, bun run build, 24 milliseconds, which we got two things here. This is a larger bundle and it's taking longer, and the dev server doesn't work correctly. So take that as you will, but for now, in terms of having a clear focus on bundling, particularly front ends, esbuild is still a win in my books. And while it'll be nice to have some competition here, I think that esbuild possibly can remain ahead. And even if it doesn't, like, this kind of time difference, what is it worth? Like, changing my entire front end flow and stack to save 3 milliseconds is not worth the energy, in my opinion. Now, having said that, once you start adding the layers on top of esbuild, which people have with like Vite and all this other jazz, like, they start to get into that territory of taking significantly longer. And so maybe we've kind of find the same thing where somebody builds this like build system on top of Bun and then provides some of these like dev server primitives on top of it. And perhaps that ends up being better. Let's see, 1140. Covered the front end stuff, covered the back end, did some benchmarks. Let's do a quick, so what we didn't compare is, if I were to do an npm install here, I figured that might cause a problem, but why? Fix the upstream dependency. Okay, let's just do this inside the other one. Just want to compare the install times on the front end project. So an npm install. Like 5 seconds. And this is likely going to have a cache, or not. Okay, so 2 seconds. Now, I think this should be instant, or close enough. This just still blows my mind, like 1,200 packages for the basic create React app. But that's fine, I guess. But just a quick check, so cd.bun. So we remove the cache again, and then this should take, oh, actually it was still in the node modules. So now, that's what it's gotta be doing some other kind of caching. because if you saw that first one took 2 whole seconds, and I mean like that could be some network difference, but I have a feeling, because I saw this earlier, that there's actually some other thing involved. But I won't know until I know. So whatever, like 700 milliseconds or 2, depending on apparently the run, versus the 5. And just for the final bit of fun, let us again throw this inside a Docker file and see what our numbers look like. Actually, yes, please. Okay, and then we'll do the same thing where we put a Docker ignore. And then this is whatever command npm start. I don't know why that's there. And package lock. So I'm mostly just curious about the install step. That took 5 locally. Probably looking at least double. Yoicks. Which that's just a whole nother question of like, what is Docker doing on top of things that's literally doubling the amount of effort that anything across like the network and file system is doing. But now let's compare that oven bun. Oops. And then we copy package.json. What is Docker? Couldn't resist still watching from the baby shower. Take that as a compliment. Bun install, and this start's not even being run. That's not what we're checking. So what's it gonna be? Ouch. That's not good, is what that's not. X to the node. Honestly, I think there kind of is. I just haven't kind of like fully gotten involved because some of it is just more effort than it's been worth. Like supposedly, I forget all the names. Amazon Firecracker is in kind of that territory. Tried using this and talk about a horrendous developer experience. But then there's also maybe OCI will list open container. No, it's not. Initiative. I feel like these open source community modules fall at the wayside. Yeah, which I can't even make fun of because that is and would be me. Pod, is it Podman? That's a one that comes to mind. Yeah, AWS is like not a thing. This one I have seen, and then who does Fly.io use? They are kind of thought it was pods, but Fly Machines, Terraform, some magic term. Maybe we can just Google search that Fly.io containers. Docker without Docker. There you go, look at that. I have been here before. What am I looking for? Multi-tenant, blah, blah, blah. Oh, they talk about Firecracker. I did think that they. No, maybe they're on the Firecracker train then. Part of the they might just kind of have their own little system. And that's the thing that I've thought about, um, is realistically speaking, like Docker is just a layer on top of like C groups and stuff. And I have definitely thought about messing around with that, but I'm not there yet in my energy levels. This is a problem if you ask me. So I will report that and see what kind of a response I get. Um, because honestly, one of the main things I was looking for is like for the most part, your Docker build isn't cached, which means that your bun install becomes, or sorry, your install of node modules becomes the problem portion. But if bun install is doubling my Docker build times, then my CI process essentially got doubled, which is the exact opposite of the actual intent. Um, which is maybe doubly funny considering Vercel just uh, allowed like bun install by default. I don't know exactly whether they run inside Docker files, but I might try that separately and see if the build times are actually correct. But I think that probably exhausts where I was going to go for today. Um, Surprisingly or not surprisingly, I find myself more apprehensive than I thought I would be entering this live stream. Um, but I'm definitely on Team Bun in terms of like local development. I will see what kind of response I get on the Docker front of things. Um, and yeah, I am this week we'll be streaming at least one other time, probably Thursday afternoon, maybe even throwing in a Wednesday evening just for funs. Um, and then after that, I have multiple conferences, so I will probably be not super streamy for a bit. And then the rest of this year, I would like to find kind of a consistent schedule. And there's going to be a few projects thrown in here, but I definitely think one that was suggested on Twitter that will find its way into the mix is building a browser. And that's a project it started previously. I don't think I've ever streamed about it, um, but we can pull that out and kind of make some progress. So thanks for joining either live or thanks for watching after the fact. Have a wonderful day. And yeah, I'm gonna flip back to this guy, but I'll have a look at the chat in case anyone has any final words because I know the delay is a bit. And yeah, thanks for joining.